Kyrie, and welcome to Parsing John. Today we're going to take a look at verse 44 of John chapter 1. We're only going to go through the one verse. Let's go ahead and get started. This is the rubric, everything that we're looking for in this verse. And now our Greek. Ein de ho Philippos apo Bethsaida ek tes poleos, or possibly poleos Andreu kai Petru. And that's as far as we're going to go then. Pretty short one. Now, first thing, before we actually get into parsing our words, two interesting notes. Bethsaida, we've got the, I believe it's called a diaeresis right there. If not, the correction will appear at the bottom of the screen. This, whenever we see this double dot mark over a letter in Greek, that's just telling us that it is not a diphthong. This is a letter that is pronounced independent of the letters around it. So normally we would want to say Bethsaida, but instead we have Bethsaida. Sorry, not that. Bethsaida. Gosh, it's hard. It is hard to say. The next thing is we've got eos here. This is epsilon omega, and epsilon omega is sometimes a diphthong, sometimes not a diphthong. Really, the only time you can tell is when you have it in poetry, and when the accent explicitly tells you, as it does right here. So since we've got an omega at the end of this word, we expect this acute accent to move over to the epsilon and stay there because the omega is dragging it over. But since epsilon and omega here are counted as a diphthong together, the accent will stay as far to the left as this noun allows it. So, really interesting right there. One of the instances where epsilon omega is a diphthong. The only other one that I can think of, not that I can think of a lot of these, is in the first few lines of the Iliad. I can't remember the specific word. Menina edethea peleia deu. Yeah, I think it's the second or third to last word of the first line. Moving on. Let's go ahead and find a verb, which is right here. Ein. Ein comes from eimi. This is going to be a third person singular imperfect tense. We've seen a lot of these before. And it is active and indicative. Was. De means but or and. It's not very emphatic at all. It's just eh. Ho is from ho he to. This is a nominative singular masculine, pointing us to Philippos. From this Omicron sigma here, we can tell that it is, in fact, nominative. So, the Philip. Apo Bethsaida. Prepositional phrase here. Apo takes the genitive in its object, which we can't really tell from this word here since it's not a native Greek word. This is, according to my notes at least, indeclinable, which means that it doesn't appear in any case at all. You have to figure it out based on the context. And I went through the dictionary entry for apo, and really the only one that made sense here is genitive, showing us place from which, or separation. Moving on, we've got a comma. Ek, another prepositional phrase. This one also takes the genitive, showing separation again, or sometimes partitive. From tes poleos. Tes here tells us that polis here is feminine, which we should know anyway. Genitive singular. Andreu, technically Andreu could be part of this, but that doesn't make any sense since we've already got our noun right there, so I'm going to close it off. From the city. Andreu, omicron, upsilon there is another genitive singular. This is masculine, name of a man. Kai Petru, who we ran into, I believe, the last paragraph. Also genitive singular, which we should be able to tell from the Kai, which can only connect two things of the same sort. So it wouldn't be connecting a genitive with a dative or a genitive with a verb. That would be crazy. Moving on. Of and Peter. Period. And that's as far as we have to go. Now let's take a look at our context. I should probably put the word. Oh, we got the Philip. So never mind. The Philip and the Philip was from Bethsaida, from the city of Andrew and Peter. Very, very simple verse today. Nothing particular to look at other than, well, inclinability, that and the diaresis, and then the genitive right there, which is a very interesting diphthong. Our final thing to do as we look at this verb is to take a look at any nouns that don't have articles with them to see how we should properly translate them, whether with a indefinite article or no article at all. Philip has an article with him, so we move on. Bethsaida doesn't really have an article with it, so we could take a look at that. So our first option for translating this is, and the Philip was from Bethsaida, or and the Philip was from a Bethsaida. Now, I am not a aficionado, as it were, of ancient geography, but to my knowledge, there's only one city by the name of Bethsaida. So with the indefinite article, the meaning falls apart and the reader would be very confused. Of course, the Greek doesn't have an indefinite article, so that's not an issue for them, but for us poor Americans, it'd be confusing. So no article there makes the most sense. Moving on. From the city of Andrew and Peter. Neither Andrew nor Peter have articles with them, so we can treat them like this one and see which makes most sense. So we have either from the city of a Andrew and a Peter, or from the city of Andrew and Peter. Now, if we throw the indefinite article in with these two, it again becomes very confusing. So why bother telling us what city this is if you're just going to say from just a generic Andrew and a generic Peter? For all we know, there could be an Andrew and Peter in every single city in the Middle East. So that doesn't make any sense. So in no instances so far in this paragraph, there, does an indefinite article make any sense at all. I believe that's all we had to look for in this verse. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you have a good day.